right, well, welcome, guys. I'm Jesse, and I run the YouTube channel Jesse the Reader. Oh, that one doesn't work?
Bill, he can probably turn it on.
Okay. And this panel is the Unbreak My Heart, Happily Never After panel. We've got Melissa de la Cruz, Danielle Paige, and Cami Garcia. Give these beautiful ladies a hand of applause. Yes. I'm going to start off by giving you a little bit of an idea as to what these authors are up to. First up, we've got Melissa de la Cruz, who is the #1 New York Times bestselling author of many acclaimed and award-winning novels for readers of all ages. Her books include The Isles of the Lost, the prequel to the Disney Channel original movie The Descendants, which is amazing, by the way. Check it out.
Thank you.
The Blue Blood series and The Witches of East Inns, on which Lifetime based a 2-season drama on. A former fashion and beauty editor, Melissa has written for the New York Times, Marie Claire, Harper's Bazaar, Glamour, Cosmopolitan, and many others. She grew up in Manila and moved to San Francisco with her family. She now lives in Los Angeles and Palm Springs with her husband and daughter. That is impressive. You're amazing. Next up, we've got Danielle Paige, who is a graduate of Columbia University and the author of New York Times bestselling Dorothy Must Die series. Sorry, this is a mouthful. The Wicked Will Rise and the 4 prequel novellas, as well as the forthcoming Stealing Snow, based on The Snow Queen by Hans Christian Andersen. Before turning to young adult literature, she worked in television industry, where she received a Writers Guild of America award and was nominated for several daytime Emmys. She currently lives in New York City. Give a round of applause. Yes. Awesome. And finally, we have Cami Garcia, who is the #1 New York Times bestselling co-author of the Beautiful Creatures and Dangerous Creatures novels. Beautiful Creatures has been published in 50 countries, translated in 39 languages, and the film Beautiful Creatures released in 2013 for Warner Brothers. Cami's solo series, The Legion, includes instant New York Times bestseller Unbreakable and the sequel Unmarked, both of which were nominated for Bram Stoker Awards. Her forthcoming YA contemporary, writing a contemporary, what are you doing? That's crazy, that's awesome. The Lovely Reckless releases on October 4th, 2016. So exciting. And we've got The X-Files Origins, Agents of Chaos, which comes out in January 2017.
Yay.
That's awesome. All right, so the first question I have for you guys is, what is your process when writing a novel inspired by another work or cast of characters that's like not your own?
When I was writing the Isles of the Lost book, I knew that it had to lead up to the Descendants movie, and so I had visited the set and we'd read the script. But what I wanted to make sure was that I connected the old classic Disney movies to the Descendants world. So it was a really fun research process because I had to watch all the Disney movies again. And we owned them all, and my daughter was 8 then, and we had just kind of finished watching, the whole slew of Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, Beauty and the Beast, and, it was really the most fun job. Just, I'd be like watching Beauty and the Beast and singing along, and be like, I'm working, So I did a lot of that. I kind of immersed myself in the universe and the world first, and really felt like I knew that language and that Disney tone before I even did anything. And then when I started writing, it took a while to get the tone right, because I wanted to make sure that just the way the book sounded was in that Disney world, and actually it took so long to get it right that it was a little difficult. Yeah.
I'm doing a Snow Queen retelling, and so for me, I did watch Frozen. And wait, is mine on still? Yeah. I reread the fairy tale and just kind of immersed myself in the world as well, and then kind of like threw it out.
And then you were like, no.
Okay, not this, because mine actually starts in the real world and then goes to the snow world.
Yes.
See if my mic works. So it does. So I am writing an X-Files book that comes out in January, but it's Teen Mulder, basically. So it's an origin story for Mulder, and I also did a rewatch. You have to do, the episode rewatch.
That was so
watch
hard.
television for homework, which is fun. But since it's an origin story, and aside from a couple of references that we know of where his family lived, there's not a lot of information about him. So for me, it was more, my editor is really interested in what made Scully a skeptic. My friend Jonathan Mayberry is doing the Scully book, and what made Mulder kind of a believer. So you have to look at the existing mythology, and then you have to figure out how your story will work into that mythology. so that it seemed, I mean, for me, I wanted to seem seamless. Like, I wanted to seem like it was, you know, Chris Carter did it, and it should have always been there. So I think that's the real trick is, you know, because obviously he's a teenager, so it has to have a different tone, and he has to sound like a teenager, but he still has to sound like the guy who's going to turn into Mulder.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so how closely do you feel you need to follow the original plot or character arcs?
Someone wanted to get that?
Mine, like, I'm creating the young, but I think is important is that there are a lot of references to, like, his parents and their marriage and his sister disappearing and things like that. So that mythology has to be super solid. But at the same time, and then the other trick is there's a lot of things that we're not allowed to write about because we can't give away certain things,
Okay.
or, for example, like, you know, have a lot of details about a part, you know, of the that's going to be in the show that we don't want to have any kind of conflict with, and things have to be checked.
Right.
So I think that's kind of the hard part is I just try to think of it as like it's a real person, and this is kind of, you know, like almost like a, you know, historical, like this is a person, this is their history, this is what we know about them, and so I can fill in, but I can't change what's there.
Right.
Yeah, I think, yeah, it's the same thing. It's like, it's the Snow Queen's origin story, how she became who she is. So I think it's like, the tale itself is very slim, so I have a lot of room to make up how she got to be evil. And so I start in the real world and then take her to that world, and then she discovers her powers, and then she gets there. So it's all about her journey.
Yeah. No, I always describe the job this way. It's like I had all of the Disney universe to play with, and then here's the narrative space your story can exist in, you know. So I had a lot of freedom, but there were boundaries to it, and the freedom was great because I could do whatever I wanted, and then really it was kind of up to somebody else to say, oh, actually you can't go there. So I was like, okay, I can't go there, but I can jump over here. You know, how about this bridge? You know, and so it was kind of like that. And you know, one thing that was really important was that you know, when you read the book, you know, it took you back to those movies. You know, here was Gaston, and Gaston's sons are called Gaston and Gaston. You know, because of course, you know, who else would he name them after but himself? You know, so there are a lot of kind of jokes like that. And you know, I had such respect for the Disney canon. And I was really glad that I got to do this gig because I wouldn't trust it to anybody else. Like I really had a lot of reverence for this, and I wanted to, you know, kind of add to the myth, but also, you know, be really respectful of it. So.
Okay, so while writing, did you read or watch anything as inspiration? I know that Cammie said that she binge watched the X-Files. So did you watch a bunch of Disney movies? Did you read or watch The Wizard of Oz a bunch of times?
I watched The Wizard of Oz like 10 million
10 million times.
But I did that before I knew I was going to write the book. So
Right.
when I was a kid, my mom used to say, like, why are you watching that again? It's like, Mom, it totally worked out.
Yeah.
So, and then for this book, for Stealing Snow, there aren't a lot of movies except for Frozen, and their story is completely different than the actual original fairy
Right.
tale. So I did watch that. I watched it once. Like, I'm not doing that. But I actually did watch a lot of Disney fairy tales, and I watched like Snow White and the Huntsman. I watched like things that like reminded me of like what a snowy world would be like. I watched The Hobbit because it had the last Hobbit movie had this amazing fight, snow, like the whole movie is like just a snow fight basically, and it's like I watched that a couple of times. Like anything that had ice in it, I honestly was actually watching like there was like some National Geographic show where it's like guys who live out in the snow. It was like I'm gonna watch that, like whatever it was. Yeah.
Yeah. No. I did rewatch the Disney movies, but it was so fun to just go on YouTube and watch all the little snippets because I would forget certain details, and I'll just look it up on YouTube and then watch the 6-second thing. Yes, I remember now. You know. So.
Okay, so what did you know when you began writing about how the novel/series would go, and how much did your initial idea for the novel/series change as you progressed?
Can you just do it again?
Sorry. Okay, so
How much did we know from the
Jesse
beginning?
has really hard questions.
I'm sorry. I was given these questions, guys.
It's too hard. I forgot the first half of it.
Yeah, no, I'm an outliner, so I know everything that's going to happen in the story. I know all the big plot points. I know the character arc. I know where Act 1 has to end, what the big kicker to Act 2 is. So I plot it all out in the beginning. What I don't know is kind of the fun details. It'll it'll be like, oh, they have to go to the dungeon or they have to go to the castle. I don't know what it looks like. I didn't know there were going to be goblins living there. I didn't know, kind of like the fun stuff that was going to be in each chapter, but I know all the plot beats. So that's how I write. And there were some things that I had to change, I think some of the big emotional things that happened in the first book, I was, when Mal, spoiler, reaches for, the staff that's going to put somebody to sleep for 1,000 years, instead of letting Evie do it, I didn't realize when she touched it, she would actually go back to that scene in Sleeping Beauty where Maleficent, is cursing everybody at the christening, and she sees her mother, and instead of, and she feels a lot of sympathy for her, because she can feel Maleficent's, sadness and anger at not being invited to this christening. So, I was like kind of unexpectedly moved by that moment in my story. I didn't quite plan it. It just happened.
I'm an outliner too.
Yeah.
But I outline, I think for this kind of thing you have to outline because we have to have approval. So, but I outline everything regardless.
Me too.
And so for this one, luckily my editor and publisher is a huge X-Files fanatic, which also helps. So she and I basically we outlined the entire thing. I also, there's areas, luckily it takes place in 1979. So that's also fun because you get to look up all the crazy stuff that happened in 1979 that you can use. But then, you can't talk about shows or something that happened in 1985. So I loved that. I had also done, Jonathan Mayberry, who's doing the Scully book, did 3 volumes of original X-Files narrative stories for IDW. And I was in the second one, and I did a Mulder short story. And Chris Carter ended up making those volumes canon.
Yeah.
So the only trick was, I was like, great, well, I just have to make sure that everything in my short story So, but it's really fun, and we just got DAC, they were like, no notes, go ahead, and, but, that is the thing, though, you are turning it in, not just to, an editor, but to, Disney or Fox or, the people who created it, because in our case, it's an IP, it's licensed from them. So Chris Carter and his team have to say okay, and Fox has to say okay. So sometimes they might say, when my not with this one, but the short story, they wrote back and they're like, you can't say Diet Coke. You have to just say Diet Soda. And I was like, do they not like Diet Coke? and my friend was like, no, they don't let you talk about brands. And I was like, okay, well, I won't use any more brands. Because I was like, oh my gosh, if there's a fight with Diet Coke, I'm going to wear. They were like, no, you just have to say Diet Soda. So that kind of stuff was weird for me because I'm very pop culture-y, so I'm always thinking about what exactly you're eating. And
Right.
so you have to be careful of stuff like that. But that was literally also for the short story, the only one I got. And then my other short story was the year Star Wars had come out. And I had some reference to either action figures or something. And of course, Jonathan, because he was such a geek like me, he was like, what year and month did Kenner start making Star Wars figures? And I was like, why? And I forgot, I put it in my story. And I told him, he's like, okay, well, in your story, that's not what it says. And I was like, so people catch you on stuff like that you have to be consistent with in the real world. But
Yeah.
that's cool.
Yeah, no, I had, oh, sorry, Danielle,
No,
go.
I was saying I'm
Yeah.
totally an outliner too, and
Yeah.
I don't I'm not answering to a studio or anyone in this case, so I just do. I think that with both books, with the Dorothy books, there are things you can't leave out. You have to have the red shoes, you have to have the
Yes.
Yellow Brick Road. But with the Snow Queen book, I have the kind of a lot more freedom. I can do whatever I want.
It's amazing. I read it. It's really awesome.
Thank you, Cammy.
And I do know the original fairy tale.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things that I did for the first book, in the first draft, I put in, the sidekicks and the little animal, friends of the villains and the princesses, and I let them talk. And one of the notes that came down from franchise, I love being part of the Disney lingo. Franchise said, Heritage said. So they said, they cannot talk English. They don't speak English. The animal characters, actually, they're speaking an animal language, but of course we see it as English, but they can't actually talk to Cinderella, And so I had to give everybody a translator. And I was like, okay, everybody has a translator so they can talk to the mice.
That's awesome. Okay, so how much of your characters' personalities is dictated by the original work you are basing your book on?
Well, I would say mine are the opposite.
The opposite, yeah.
No, I feel like it kind of is rooted in character, but like I took the thing that whatever the character most wanted and kind of twisted that. So Dorothy always wanted to go home, and when she got home, she didn't want to be there anymore.
Yeah.
And while she was at home, she got a little darker. And the same thing, like the Tin Man, like now loves Dorothy obsessively. The Cowardly Lion is now Roydy, like it's like that, and the Scarecrow is like a mad scientist for Dorothy, and then for Snow Queen, it's more of just it's how she got to be the dark character that we see in the book.
Cool.
Mine has to be really close because mine is not like really a retelling. It's an origin story, and since there are the shows and everything, they don't want me to like do the opposite or anything. Like,
Yeah.
They definitely want it to feel, and I want it to feel like Mulder because. I think it would be really hard to do something like this if you weren't a fan, because you have to be a fan of the material, not only to respect the material, but just because like you love the character
Yeah.
and you want to create that.
And
big
you know
origin
the
story.
character.
So
you
for
know?
me,
Yeah.
it's more about thinking about knowing who that character is as an adult, and thinking about, well, like, what would a guy like that be like as a teenager, and the little bit that we do know about his parents, not getting along great with his dad, his sister disappearing, like, how would those things affect him? And, how, like, because you want to make that feel really real. You want him to seem like Mulder, but at the same time, he's not Mulder yet, He hasn't gone in the FBI. He hasn't become, he's not a famous profiler. And so you want to think about, like, what kind of kid or person and what kind of path, what kind of story would take that person to the place that they would, because in this one, he's a senior in high school. It's spring break. So he's about to graduate and then go off to college. So like, what would lead him to go to college and then, go on to the FBI? Like, so it's more like thinking about, I think about it like comic books, because I'm a big comic book fan. So I think I read a lot of origin stories. So I kind of think about it as like, what the end product is. It's like if you really like brownies with walnuts, you don't know every single thing that might be in them, but you definitely know there's like chocolate and nuts and like it probably has some eggs. So then you have to like wing it from there. So it's, it is a little bit like baking.
Yeah, and I think they're kind of like adopted characters, because we write our own books where we are, the boss and the universe is something that we make up. But when I did The Descendants, there was definitely like, these are some character traits that, Mal, Evie, Carlos, and Jay, have been approved by higher ups. But you have to, they have to become real, they have to become real characters. You have to like kind of breathe life into them. And so I kind of took those, bullet points, and then I was like, how do I make this kid a real kid? And I really felt a lot of sympathy for these characters because they were the kids of, these greatest villains, and they were kind of living in this dump, in this trash heap, and their parents, you don't want to be the kid of Cruella de Vil, right? You're just going to be fluffing the robes and, doing her hair. So there's not, yeah. So I imagined, like, what would that be like, growing up with these kind of horrible people as your parents. And I think when I thought of them that way, they really became real to me. And so, I think I was true to what we wanted the characters to be, but I was able to still kind of infuse them with my own, your soul is in your books. You got to give a little piece of you into each of these characters.
I liked that the characters
Yeah.
still, like, that you wrote, to me, they didn't feel like cartoon characters.
Yeah.
They felt like actual,
Yeah,
kids.
no, I really wanted
real,
that.
like
Yeah.
real kids. So it
Yeah.
felt super real
Yeah.
to read it, and that's what I think. I have a daughter who's that age group, and same age as Mel's daughter, and she read them, and she was, like, she felt like suddenly those cartoon characters she'd watched were like real, and that's like a magic trick.
Yeah, and I love that it's like what happens after Happily Ever After, and these are the people that weren't happy. So like, what, I'm always interested in those people.
Yes, definitely. The ones who lost.
Okay, so if you could retell any story, regardless of permissions, which would you choose and why?
Oh, that's a good one.
It has to be like a bookstore.
Anything, yeah.
That's a good one. There's a bunch of things that are under copyright that I wanted to do. And of course, right now I can't think of any, but
I'm trying to think, like,
Yeah.
The Little House on
Buffy.
the Prairie. Oh, Buffy.
Buffy.
Buffy,
Yeah.
oh, that'd be amazing.
Buffy.
I enviously like want to kill Nancy Holder, my friend, who does
Yeah.
I did the tie-in novels
Yeah.
with like every time I see her.
yeah, yeah. I would probably write a Harry Potter sequel.
Oh my gosh, yes.
I would write my own.
Yes.
Well, Danielle and I will be doing the original.
Yeah.
Is that the prequel? The prequel
And I will of course
with
be
James.
Klaus. I will write Klaus. You will have to write
Claire,
the girl.
yeah,
I-
I'm doing it.
I can't write the nice girl.
Yeah.
I have to write the bad boy.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
I can do
nice.
the nice girl.
But I love.
Well, it'll be a
I
stretch
love
for me,
Buffy.
but I can do
I
that.
mean, X-Files is close, but I mean, I love. My dogs are named after characters from Buffy. Like I love Buffy, and I always say, and so does my editors. I'm like, maybe they need some more Buffy books.
Oh, and right now
One
I'm a little
day.
obsessed if I'm like doing something new, like Jessica Jones. I would love
Oh,
to
she's
do.
great.
Jessica
yeah, I would love
Jones.
to do an origin story.
And I would love to do Magneto, who's my favorite
awesome.
superhero.
Yes.
And he is a superhero. He's like, he has just a little bit of a dark side.
Yes.
The only thing that's tricky for me, like, right now, my next book, which I actually think if I was still writing, like, the Beautiful Creatures books, it would have been easier, but, like, my next book is contemporary, The Lovely Reckless, and it was hard because I have a teenage boy in it. And I was copy editing and doing the past pages on that and working on the other one. And it helped in a sense that it reminded me that, like, Mulder needs to seem like a real teen, not like Agent Mulder adult.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's tough because if you're writing other characters that age, you know, like other boys, like you have to make sure like that Mulder doesn't suddenly seem like other characters in your other books.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I switched back and forth a little, and then now luckily I'm done copy editing. But even with my new one, I'm like, I'm gonna put it aside with my other solo book and work on this one because I feel like now that it's contemporary, if it was magic, it wouldn't matter. Because
Right.
my characters would be supernaturals, and I wouldn't think of it the same way. But when it's another guy the same age, I feel like I don't want those two characters in any way to start blending, where it
Yeah.
just seems like I have like one boy in several books.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
I want
Yeah.
him to be really
Yeah.
distinct.
Yeah.
But it also helps to think that, you know, he does have to seem like a real kid, not like a caricature.
Right.
Definitely.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, so Melissa and Cami, you both have had adaptations of your books, and you've also written about like movie characters and TV characters. So which would you prefer, writing about the characters or having your own books and your own characters be brought to life?
You know, I think it's hard. I think control is a big issue, and I think when you sell your rights to Hollywood, you know, and then they first of all they seduce you. They're like, oh, you'll be part of it. Oh, you know, it'll be great. We'll take all your notes, and then you know.
Sit there every day with us, and we're gonna work together.
And you know, it's fine, you know, because you know I'm busy anyway, and I kind of forgot, you know, I'd sold the rights to Witches of East End, and 2 years later they're like, we're shooting the pilot. I'm like, oh, that's so great, you know, and I love the TV show. It's very different from my books, but you know, still, you know, my characters and kind of the spirit of the story. So I really enjoyed it. And I was able to enjoy it, you know, kind of as a fan, and to kind of like enjoy the fact that I was like a little bit of a part of it. And I was okay with that, but I think, you know, I like when I'm in control, and I like when I get to do, you know, what I get to do. So now I'm doing a bunch of other Hollywood things, and I'm like, yeah, you're not gonna get rid of me that easily. It's gonna be in the contract this time.
Yeah, we optioned the rights before the book even came out. And even if you're J.K. Rowling and many of your books have come out and sold millions and billions of copies, like you might have some semblance of control. But even, you know, authors who are very successful, and literally, I mean, I think Nicholas Sparks is probably the one who has and James Patterson have the most control and involvement. Like, it's very difficult. Studio contracts, ours look like the Bible. It was like this thick, and it took months for a lawyer to go through. And it's not meant it is meant to protect them and for them to be able to adapt that material. And luckily, we lived in LA and we understood that and how it worked. So we didn't have a fantasy that we were gonna be sitting on set every day bossing people around. We were like, we're gonna option this and they're gonna do a thing and the books are our thing and that's their thing. And that was fine. I think I would love to see something else that I did adapted. I would definitely want more control. But I also wouldn't want to write it. I don't want to be completely responsible because, you could, because you have a background in writing teleplays and screenplays. For me, I feel like, paring something down is really hard versus like, I'm really good at making it fatter, but making it smaller is hard. So I feel like I would love to be, more involved where I can give notes
but
and
I
I
think
can
you would
help.
write a fabulous. I think both of you would
Maybe,
write
but I would
fabulous
love to-
screenplays
I would
because
love
you
to be
actually
involved.
really write.
I wrote too.
Yeah,
would
but I
love
think
to be
but you
involved,
write
but-
like really cinematically. Both of you do.
Yeah, but I mean, I feel like what the dream would be like, you get the screenwriter who wants to hang out with you and get you help.
Right.
Who's
Yeah.
like you guys are a team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that works, but and I mean, if I adapted other people's material, that's why I think I kind of like shows better. Because I do think it's a tremendous responsibility to adapt like a novel, and I was a teacher, so I have a lot of reverence for books. So like I'm fine writing like originals of Buffy and stuff like that, and X-Files, but I feel like and I feel like the people who create those things expect people to play with it a lot more, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you guys are writing writing about really popular characters from really popular stories. Do you ever feel pressure from fans or from yourself to stick to what they know, or do you like diverging from the expected?
No, I definitely feel the pressure, right, from the Disney fandom. I mean, I don't think it's pressure, but I think you don't want to mess it up.
Yeah.
You want people to like it as much as you did, and you want to feel like, and it's funny because I was talking to Alex Bracken, who did Star Wars, and she did a Star Wars retelling, and how those fans are so vocal, and online. And I was like, oh, I feel like I was kind of spared that, because the Disney fan base is, pretty, I don't know, kind of nurturing. It was like, people were like, oh, it reminds them of their childhood, and maybe our most vocal critics aren't quite online yet. I don't know.
I don't know. I think for me, I don't think I really thought about it. I kind of was writing the Dorothy one for me, and I didn't really until like the day before the release, and then it hit me. It's like, oh my God, it's the Wizard of Oz. What did I do?
And you turned Dorothy into a villain.
One of the most beloved characters ever, and I actually wrote a book called Dorothy Must Die. Like, how's that going to go tomorrow? So, I remember having that moment. With the new one, I feel less. I'm taking the Frozen characters and making that. But honestly, originally she was kind of evil, so it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's different because their stuff has come out.
Right.
So they have a reaction.
Yeah.
When our announcement was made, Jonathan wrote for Marvel for years, and he's older than me, and he's like won 74,000 Stoker Awards. He's got a thick skin. He's like not a guy to be messed with, and he's gigantic. And people were writing on our Facebook pages like, are you aware that Mulder and Scully did not meet as teenagers? And Jonathan was like, no, actually, we've never seen an episode of The X-Files. We have no idea what's going on in The X-Files. We're going to have them fall in love and date and get married. It's a really ruin the canon for all of you. I did not write that. I was like, yes, we're aware of that. But, I think, but we didn't get a lot of, negativity. It was more like people wanted to know we were fans and we actually had seen The X-Files.
Right.
Not but I think that's, for me, it's more the responsibility, and I think if you try to think about what everybody else is going to think when it comes out, it's paralyzing.
Yeah.
So what I try to think about more is I'm a fan of the X-Files. What would I be happy and excited if I get, when I read Christopher Golden's Buffy, I loved it. So I'm like, if I get this X-Files book, what am I going to be super excited to read? But the trick with this book is also, Disney and humongous. A lot of X-Files fans obviously are grown-ups. So the other thing that is really important to us and to our editor is that the books are obviously X-Files books, but they also need to function and be able to stand alone. Because a lot of teens who pick up this book are not going to have watched the X-Files. And they need to be able to open the book and have a cool, suspenseful story about a kid they can relate to. And then for the Uber fans, we have Easter eggs and all kinds of things that will be hidden in it. But that was one of the things when we were even discussing doing it. Jonathan was really adamant about it. He was like, I want these to be able to stand alone as great YA novels and function as these X-Files origin stories. Because, you can't just hope all the grown-ups are going to read them. We want teens to read them, too.
Right.
And yours was that. I mean, my daughter, she'd seen some of the, she hadn't seen the Dalmatians. She doesn't like that one, but, she knew who some of the characters were.
Yeah.
But it was, you know what I mean? I feel like she didn't know as much as, I knew reading the book. And so she still also just wanted it to be an awesome kind of fairy tale story.
And we wanted to be a book that you could read even if you didn't watch any of the movies or the new Descendants movie, because some people just like to read the books, Fancy that.
Yeah. I don't think I actually have ever met anyone who was like, I've never seen The Wizard of Oz though.
Yeah.
That was that one was okay.
Awesome. We're now going to be opening up to Q&A. So there's a mic right there. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and go start lining up.
See who's the bravest one.
Yes, who's going to be our first? Any questions?
You can go
There's a
first.
there's a mic
So
over
you
there.
go
Yeah, it's
to
go
the
over there.
mic.
Go
Yeah,
over.
awesome.
It's fun to have questions.
Awesome.
Hi.
Hi.
So this question is for Melissa. I know that you said that you drew inspiration from watching the Disney movies and everything like that. Did you also draw inspiration from Ever After High? I'm not sure if you're familiar with it.
You know, I had never read it, so no. You know, we're definitely aware of Ever After High, but you know, sometimes when I'm writing something in a genre that is populated by other things that are kind of close to it, I actually don't read those books because I expressly don't want to be influenced, and I also don't want to be. I don't want to do something in my book and then, oh, I can't do that because that was already in Ever After High. I don't want to stop myself either from like kind of letting my imagination run wild. So, but the tone I think of Ever After High is very different from mine. Like what we wanted to model it after was like, what if there was like a Harry Potter like, you know, series that was tied to Disney. So that was my idea for the book. So,
Thank you.
thanks.
So which do you find more challenging, adapting existing material or creating your own original?
I think
Creating original
Yeah.
for me.
I'll let
I mean,
you
I
know
love
when
to
I
create
do
original.
it. You know?
adapting. I like
fun.
originals. Like it was actually hard. It was you know, because I just play in my own playground, so like playing in somebody else's playground. I mean, it's fun. It's really fun to play in a Disney playground, but I like when I am the boss of everything.
Yeah, well, this is my second time doing a retelling, so I've been, for books, I've only been playing in other people's worlds, so I guess that my next challenge would be to do something
I
original.
like my world, but I feel like with my books, I feel this like awesome sense of responsibility of like, oh, is it going to be good enough? Is it going to be entertaining enough? Whereas like I'm already an X-Files fan, so I'm like, of course it's going to be awesome. The X-Files are awesome. Fox and Mulder. So I feel like if you're a fan of the work, you definitely lose that fun world building sense of control on some level because you can't just spin up whatever you want.
Right.
But it's also like it is. It's like you get to go into the TV show kind of.
Yeah.
And that part's fun.
Thank you.
Do you have any tips for marketing your work to the previous, what the work is based on? Like how you, like fans of X-Files, like how do you find all those fans if they're not readers? Or
Well,
the other Disney work, like how do you market to those?
The good news is I don't have to market it because that's what my publisher does. I mean, I will help, obviously, but that is the advantage. I mean, like, this is not something most likely you could do self-published. Like, you need a publisher to go license that material, and you want, like, someone marketing it who knows what they're doing. We're going to do interviews, we're going to talk about it. We've already been approached by, like, Nerdist and IO9 and, like, places that cover things like the X-Files. But at the end of the day, like, we have publicists and marketing people who are going to do that. They're going to reach out to places where X-Files fans would be and science fiction fans. If I had to do that too, I think I would not do it. Like, if that was my job also, I would be like, no, thank you. 'Cause
Yeah.
that's actually, to
But
me,
for-
way harder.
Yeah.
But for a
Right.
self-published author, like say a self-published author got a review and it said fans of Nicholas Sparks and Richard Paul Evans would love this book.
Well, it depends. You
Like
could
what-
do retellings. Like, you couldn't do, as a self-published person, you can't do Disney or the X-Files without licensing it,
Yeah,
or
no,
you will go to jail.
Okay, but just in general, like if you wrote just something that was similar to another, like a similar
I
genre.
mean, I try not. I mean, my new one, Lovely Recklessly, says like Fast. My editor says like Fast and Furious meets Romeo and Juliet, and in a way I don't mind that because number one, Fast and the Furious is a movie, and Romeo and Juliet is like super old. But if someone had compared my book like in a tagline to like Melissa's book that's very recent, like I would be flattered, but I also don't want to do that because like I have a lot of respect for her work and my work is different. And I think to be able to say like, well, I'm like Melissa de la Cruz is a little different than saying like I'm like a Shakespeare.
Well, no, but
like, I've been really
if the
old.
reviewer said that, like the Columbia Review.
Oh well, if they say
said
it, it's
that.
fine. Like someone
Yeah.
said,
But how would you
fans of
mark- how would
Twilight
you-
will love beautiful creatures, so that's
But
fine.
But how would you market that?
We put it on your website. you can make a graphic for it for Instagram. You know what I mean? Like you put it up on your socials, obviously. Like I blurbed Danielle's book.
Yes,
and
thank you.
They made, but anybody can make. They made a pretty graphic, and they put it up on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. And that's what and you do that with any great review, whether it's EW or it's a journal or Melissa De La Cruz says she loves my book.
I'll blurb it.
Put it up everywhere. So everyone knows like Melissa De La Cruz and Danielle Paige suggested the reader love my book.
Melissa's also reading my book. Thank you.
Yes, I am.
You just put it up on your socials and for sure on your website.
Yeah. Okay.
And you can
thanks.
like use hashtags and stuff. I mean, people who people will find you.
Definitely.
Okay. Thanks.
Cammie, I'm a huge Buffy fan too. So, who is your favorite character other than Buffy? Because we all know she's the best anyway.
Spike.
Spike, okay.
Spike, my first dog, my blonde, very attractive dog, named Spike.
No hesitation.
My small, miniature, long-haired dachshund who flops around all the time and is very lazy but adorable is named Oz because my husband, who's 6'4", said, "I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be a chauvinist pig, but I'm not walking like a 14-pound dog called Angel around." So now I am rallying to get a large, burly dog
Named
that I
Angel?
can name Angel.
There you go.
But I love Spike. I always like the bad characters, but I also love that deep
Me
down, like
too.
Spike wasn't really all bad. Like I love that. I like the juxtaposition always in a character, which is why I think a lot of people who give writing advice always say like, the villain is the hero of their own story. If you write a villain that's just 100% bad to me, it's like super flat.
Yeah.
I want to know like even if they're totally nuts, I want to know like what it is the Joker actually thinks is so great about him.
I know. I always think that a villain doesn't know that they're a villain. Like that's like all.
Oh
they
yeah,
have
no.
no idea.
Nobody thinks of themselves as a bad person. Yeah.
Hey, that's it.
Hello.
Hi.
I have two questions for Melissa.
I guess it was for me.
One is, do you think it's a good idea to expand onto the book Isle of the Lost and continue with your own story?
Do I think it was a good idea to continue my own
No.
story in Isle of the Lost?
No, I mean, would you want to write another book based
Oh, would I
on-
want to write something that I just had my own control over and didn't need approval from Disney? Yeah, that would be kind of fun. But, I actually kind of do that now already. There's definitely Return to the Isle of Lost and Isle of Lost are my stories. These are my ideas, my plot, my characters. And when we talk about, I think it's hard to explain what the approval process is like because it sounds like somebody's there going, yes, yes, yes. And it's not really like that. I wrote the book I wanted to write, and I write the book I want to write in both of these books. And, we both have the same goal, to tell the right story for the characters. So, these are my books in the same way the Blue Bloods and Witches of East End are my books. And these characters are fully mine. So what happens is, mostly what happens is you talk to them a lot. You say, here's what I want to do, and then they say, okay, but can you do this too, or can you take this out? And they're like, okay, I'll do that, and then maybe what if we did this, So every solution that's in there that maybe was not the original solution is still my solution. Like, nobody's telling me, this is what you need to do for that.
Like that's translators. That's a great solution.
Yeah, I had to do it all, so it's still my book.
And also, are you going to be citing books after the panel?
Yes, I am at the Disney booth at 3 o'clock. Sorry.
We can hear.
So, how, what's the reactions from, the people, for Melissa, like people who are in Descendants, for you, people who are in X-Files, for you, people who are in Wizards of Oz? How do they feel about the books, and do you get feedback from them a lot?
Well, I mean, I don't know, obviously, because mine's not done. So I don't know how David Duchovny will feel. But
He will love it.
But Chris Carter's team, the person who created the X-Files is one of those approval people. And obviously, he likes it so far because he liked the short story, which he also had to approve. And he also has to say, okay, this is fine, this outline's fine, it doesn't sound crazy, it seems like Mulder. I think it would be great if like we get to find out what David Duchovny thinks too.
And
my
maybe
editor's like,
take a
"Yes,
photo with
yes,
him."
David Duchovny." But
You definitely want David
Yes,
Duchovny's
yes.
approval.
yeah. So I mean, like to me, that's actually more like to me that's even more important that like the true fans and the creator and those people feel like it really is feels like the X-Files, because to me those are the he created it, like so he knows if it's like if it's like Fox Mulder and it fits into the X-Files and the fans, but like you're never gonna make everybody happy. So I feel like at the end of the day, you just have to be, like Melissa said, be really true to like the original work and make it feel like that. And I think if the creators and the gatekeepers who are in charge of saying yes and no say yes, you must have done a good job.
Yeah, I mean, in my case, I think there's a lot of fans of Wizard of Oz, but I've always gotten good feedback.
Yeah,
People
no,
are
I've never
happy.
heard anyone, like, be mad about the
yeah.
Wizard of Oz
People
thing.
are just they're happy that I used a lot of details from the other books, and yeah, so I've always gotten a good response.
Yeah, I did an event with Dove Cameron, who plays Mal, and we talked about the book. She had read it, and she said, I was so glad to read it because it made me understand Mal so much more. And I know Sophia was actually our audiobook narrator, so she had read the book, and they've all read the book. And I think it's great to know that they loved it too. It's a fun project, and it's fun to feel the love from everybody. So,
Thanks.
thank you.
Hi, ladies.
Hi.
First of all, my family, and I like to say my family because reading is a collective effort in our house, and so from 11 to 39, we all love your books.
Aww.
And I loved The Lost as well, and I was kind of surprised because I was so with the movie, and my daughter's, you have to read this. And I'm like, yes, I'm
Well,
so
the book
glad
is
I
always
did.
better than the movie.
Isn't it, though?
I can say that at BookCon.
Yes, you can. But my question is actually for Cami. You've done a lot of co-writing. How is the process different now that you're writing without
Well, I've written
your
now.
other arm, it would probably
I've
feel
written-
like?
The Legion series is 2 books so far.
Mm-hmm.
The Lovely Reckless isn't out, but it's written. Like I'm done with it. And I've written a lot of short stories too. So I've actually written a lot on my own. I mean, the biggest difference is it takes a lot longer. Like it's fun to write with Margie. That's one reason why we went back and wrote Dangerous Creatures.
And we're
It's
very happy
fun.
that you did, so
What
thank you.
happened?
We're very happy you did
Yeah.
that. so
But I mean, it's fun because for when you're at least the way we write, when we're writing together, you also get to be a reader. Because we have an outline and we know generally what's going to happen. Like Melissa's saying, more like a beat sheet. So we know the main plot points. But I don't always know how if I'm writing chapter 2 and she's writing chapter 3, I might not know. I know they're going to link in with they're going to New York, but I might not know how she's going to get them there. So when the chapter comes back to me, I not only am going to add to it, but I get to be a reader. Like I get to see all the cool stuff that my co-writer has done. And when you're writing alone, like I sit for very long periods of time and say, I think this must be awful. And until I have enough pages that I want to show it to Holly Black and Carrie Ryan read for me, and Danielle's going to read a new one for me. Like, until you show it to the person in your editor, you're kind of thinking like, okay, this seemed like a good idea, but now I'm writing it, I'm not 100% sure if it's a good idea, because I invented it from nothing. And I don't have that other person saying, oh my gosh, I love that, keep going. Margie was also like my quality control. She'd be like, that's terrible. And I cut that out. And I never want to see that again as long as we live. So that I like collaborating. Some writers would not like that kind of exchange. I do. But luckily and with X-Files, I'm lucky because my editor, like we did the outline. Like she's a big fan. So like we can go back and forth. I'm like, what would you rather see? Would you rather be here and do this or do, so I still can at least have the conversation, and I think that helps. When I'm doing like my original stuff, I run the ideas by, and there's a little proposal, but I still haven't given them 100 pages. I give my editor 100 pages before, I turn the rest in. And so then I usually feel better, so I'm like, okay, she doesn't hate it, she likes it so far. But I'm I'm like a neurotic kind of I always think it's gonna be bad until I'm done and I can fix it up.
All right, thank you.
Hiya. So for, I forgot. I'm sorry.
Just wait.
It'll come
yeah,
back
go
to
and
you.
stay in line because in 2 seconds you're gonna remember. That's what happens to me.
Yes, I have a couple of questions for Melissa.
Sure.
Okay, about the when you were writing the Descendants tie-in, there's Jay, son of Jafar, Mal, Maleficent's daughter, and what are the names of Cruella and the Evil Queen's kids again?
Carlos and Evie.
Oh yeah, Carlos and Evie. Out of all of the four kids, which of them do you think is like the polar opposite in personality of like who their parents were, and why do you say this?
You know, I would probably say Carlos, and because he is so unlike Cruella de Vil. You know, Cruella is an incredibly selfish, you know, kind of arrogant woman, and Carlos is me. You know, he's my favorite character in Descendants, and I gave him basically my personality in my childhood, because he was, you know, he's in the AP class, Advanced Penchant for Evil, and, you know, so he was kind of like this kind of nerd in the back, you know, who's kind of just tinkering, and that was kind of who I was when I was little. And, you know, he's just very different from her. He's not selfish. He's not, you know, cruel. He's probably, he thinks of himself as a little cowardly. He probably thinks of himself as a little weak. And then in the course of the story, you find out, you know, how brave he is, and, you know, how much he's the youngest of them, and how much he was deprived of of a mother's love, and you just feel so bad for him. So, you know, whereas Mal, you know, definitely, you know, she wants to be like Maleficent. She wants to be the big bad. You know, she wants to prove that she's just as bad as her mom, but maybe there's part of her that's not. You know?
She's like wanting to prove that she's worthy of being loved by her mom, you mean?
No, that she's worthy of taking up that scepter of the Mistress of Darkness and can rule the minions.
Also, like you said that you watched like a lot of Disney movies as research for this. Like if you were to continue the story, are there like any particular villains that that weren't explored in the actual Descendants movie that you would like to talk about? Like say Yzma or Ursula or Hades?
Yeah, hopefully in later books. In the sequel, we do a little bit in Camelot, so that's kind of fun. So The Sword and the Stone is a, a movie there. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.